Okay, so today we're going to go ahead and talk about multiplying radicals and dividing radicals as well. Okay, so simply put, you're going to multiply the numbers that are on the outside and the numbers that are on the inside of the radicals, but you're going to do those separately. So for number one, we'll rewrite it 4 times the square root of 3, or 4 square root 3 times 2 square root 5. Now the next step that you're going to write after that, you're going to, using the commutative property of multiplication, we can regroup these things. So we can do 4 times 2 times the square root of 3 times 5. And then from there, we just write our final answer. This is going to be 8 square root 15. Now, the reason that this is our final answer is because we can't take the square root of either one of those numbers. So we just go ahead and multiply them and write our final answer. So let's take a look at number 2. We'll first rewrite it. Use a different color. 4 square root 5 times 4 square root 6. When we rewrite it using the commutative property, alright, we're going to do 4 times 4 times the square root of 5 times 6. And when we simplify it, we're going to get 16 times the square root of 30. And that'll be our final answer. We could take the square root of that, we would, and if we wanted to check, just to make sure, over here to the side, we know that 5 times 6, we could break the 6 down, right? And that would make 5 times 2 times 3. But when we simplify, remember this is a square root, so the index is 2. And we don't have any numbers, any of the same numbers, so we can't group anything together. So our final answer would just take us back to the 30. So 16 square root 30. All right. Let's go to number 3. Number 3. Oops. Let's go to the. So we first want to start off with rewriting it. That's going to give us 4 square root 5 times 6 square root 10. When we regroup it using the commutative property, we're going to do 4 times 6 times the square root of 5 times 10. Okay. Now, and the simplifying process, what I did last time right here, I should have did that first instead of last, but let's go ahead and we'll do that first for this one. So over here off to the side, we can look at this as the square root of 5 times 10. And the 10, we can break that down. So this is going to be square root of 5 times 2. And now, remember our square root is the index is 2. So that means in groups of 2's, we're going to circle that, cross that out. So that's going to give us 5 on the outside and square root 2. So when I come back over here for our problem, when I simplify this is going to give me 24 times 5 square root 2. And then we still have to multiply the 4 and the 25. The 24 and the 5. That's 20, carry the 2, that's 10 plus 2, 120. So we would get our final answer of 120 square root 2. Alright. So for number 4, we have 6 square root 3 times 3 square root 6. And when we regroup using the commutative property, that's going to give us 6 times 3 times the square root of 3 times 6. And what we're going to want to do over to the side is go ahead and break it down or check it to see if we can break it down. 3 times 6, we can break the 6 down into 3 times 2. And now, remember our index is 2. So now we have our 2 3's. We bring that on the outside. And then we're left with the square root of 2. So we bring that over here. And really, we could just go ahead and write it off. 6 times 3 times 3 square root 2. And our final answer, that's going to be ultimately 6 times 6, which is 6 times 9, which is 54, or you can look at it as 18 times 3, which is 54. But either way, 54 square root 2. Final answer. Alright, so when it comes to dividing, you pretty much break it up and do it the same way, but instead of multiplying, we're just going to be dividing everything. So we're going to rewrite it first. 12 times the square root of 6 divided by 3 square root 2. When we simplify this is going to become 12 divided by 3 times the square root of 6. And really, we can write this all together. The square root of 6 divided by 2. And then we simplify those. We can simplify this, and we can simplify that. Let me use a different color. So when we simplify the 12 divided by 3, that's going to give us 4. And when we simplify 6 divided by 2, that's going to give us the square root of 3 for that final answer there, that expression. And that would be it. So let's take a look at number 6. We're going to follow that same method there. 6 square root 6 divided by 4 square root 6. So that's going to be 6 divided by 4 times the square root of 6 divided by 6. When we simplify this here, we're going to end up with, both of these, we know we can divide those by 2. So that's really going to become 3 halves, so 3 divided by 2 times the square root of 1. Now the square root of 1 is just equal to 1. So really, we're just going to be left with 3 halves as a final answer. Okay, because just in case you didn't know, the square root of 1 equals 1, and 1 times anything is just itself. Okay. Are there any questions for these two here? Alright, so for number 7 here, we're going to start off by rewriting it. So we have 2 square root 6 divided by 4 square root 2. We're going to rewrite it just to show these individual parts. 2 divided by 4 times the square root of 6 divided by 2. Now when we simplify the fraction, both of those can be divided by 2. So we'll simply end up with 1/2. When you simplify what's underneath the radical, that becomes the square root of 3. Now, how do we write our final answer? There's 2 different ways here. You can write it as a square root of 3 over 2, or you could say 1/2 and then square root 3. Now, the preferred way that you probably will see it most times, like on a test or something, is right there.